We're live. Hey, everybody, it's power session time. It is Tuesday. We are ready to rock. I am your host. We'll give everybody just a couple of minutes to hop on here, and then we're going to rock and roll. So excited. Those of you who have never attended a power session before, just as far as just a quick little introduction, we are Habit Finder. I'm the president of Habit Finder. We've been a coaching and training company for the last 20 years. Working exclusively with the Augmandino principles as the official Augmandino company, developing proprietary software and tools and principles and practices that help you get out of your own way. And of course, we've always heard about that. Everybody talks about that. It always comes down to mindset, which is really this mystical word that has been created to sell you stuff that a lot of you don't need. We want to be able to actually measure mindset. We want to be able to actually measure the scientific pieces, the elements to how your brain is working. So it's not just a philosophical thing. It's not just, these ideas. It's not, ironically, it's not what you think it is. It's the things that you don't realize you're thinking that can actually create the biggest challenges. And it's the gifts that you don't realize you already have that can give you the biggest opportunities. And Habit Finder is focused on unlocking those things, showing you ways to look at the world differently. As I've said many times from stage, I don't care about getting you to think the way I think. I just want you to stop thinking the way you think. Not entirely, because not everything in your life is what you don't want. But the things that you don't want are directly tied to how you think. And if you don't change how you think, you're never going to get different results. You might be able to change things temporarily. We've all been able to stick to something for a couple of days, couple of weeks, couple of months, depending on how deeply ingrained the habit is and what buttons it pushes in terms of our psychology. But we want to create long-term shifts in fulfillment and abundance in both income and impact. Thanks so much for being here. Let's go ahead and get rocking and rolling in today's power session. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's Power Session with Habit Finder. I am your host, Paul Blanchard, president of Habit Finder. I am very excited to be with you today, as I am every week for these Power Sessions. These are one of my favorite things that I get to do. I've been doing them for almost 5 years as a coach every Tuesday at noon Mountain Time. I can count on one hand the number of Power Sessions I've had to miss. And so this is one of my favorite things to do, to come right here in our Power Session laboratory together and talk about something that we hope that if you'll implement just one little tweak, because that's really all it takes, little tweaks, little calibrations. There are a lot of us making over course corrections. We're making over corrections in our life. And just like when you overcorrect in a car, you've got to recorrect. And that's one of the most common ways of rolling over and creating catastrophic results in what you're trying to create. So we want little tweaks, okay? Now, first, I want to tell you a little story. Actually, before I tell you a story, I want you to think of someone who's been trying to look for answers in their life. I want you to think of someone on your team, someone in your family, someone that you network with, someone that you're connected to that has been trying to figure out why they haven't been able to figure it out, that has been trying to find that piece that is going to help them unlock the longevity of what they're passionate about, actually being able to feel like they're getting traction. And I want you to tag them. I want you to share this out today, because I'm going to talk about the thing, the singular element that will determine your success or your failure, the singular element that you will want to investigate and inspect constantly for calibration to success. That if you will come back to this piece every day, it alone will make a massive difference in your awareness and the application of that awareness to create success in your life. This is, as my father would call it, the fulcrum, okay? This is what holds everything together, the balancing point, the pivot point. The fulcrum is what we're going to be talking about today. Now, I'm not promising that I can tell you how to solve all of it today, But if you know where to look, you can start compounding solutions. If we're just out there searching randomly like we're on some scavenger hunt, we're going to find a lot of random pieces and little bits of information that give us these nice dopamine hits and these nice little euphoric moments of aha. But as far as being able to actually compound and sequentially put them together to create trajectory, to be able to create direction, that's what I want to provide today. Okay? It's going to be a lifetime of calibration, a lifetime of adjustments with what I'm going to be able to talk to you about today. But you're going to want to look here first and foremost. So let's give this an opportunity to have this shared out with people who deserve to find out where is the most important place to be looking when it comes to your personal and professional development, your passion for wanting to make an impact on this world, your desire to serve others and make this world a better place and make lots of money. If you don't want all those things, then you're in the wrong place. If you do want those things, but you're not necessarily comfortable with saying them all out loud, you're totally in the right place. Okay? If you want those things, but feel like some of the other things you're supposed to want are contradictory to those things, you're still in the right place. So let's dive right into this because we're talking about the pivot point of your direction, the pivot point of your success, the pivot point of your passion, your willingness to suffer for things that you love. That's what passion is, a willingness to suffer for things that you love. But where we get confused is how we have defined, how we analyze, how we consider what we really love. What do we really love? Because if we love something, it is unbelievable. The physiology, the neurology, the psychology of the body, its ability to go above and beyond, its ability to be relentless, its ability to be able to be consistent, to transform, to adjust and adapt when it is pursuing something that it truly loves is extraordinary. So why haven't so many more people been able to transcend? Why haven't so many other people been able to break loose, to unleash? What is it that's holding them back? Because all of them that I've talked to feel like they love what they want to accomplish. They love being able to serve people. They love being able to grow their team. They love being able to help other people be successful. They love having no debt. They love having more income. They so many believe that they love, and I'm going to swap that word out to what's underneath that, to what the kindling. You think of a fire, you've got to start with the kindling, okay, first, before you can ever have a fire. So what is the kindling? What is the pilot light of love? It is desire. So what we're going to talk about today, pulling the cover of love back in terms of your direction in life, what's going to calibrate, what is going to determine your success is your desire. What you desire will determine what you achieve in this life, period, end of story. What you desire will determine not the opportunities that you are provided. Everyone wants to talk about the opportunities they're provided. That is a limited understanding. Life is not about the opportunities you're provided. It's about the opportunities you notice that you're provided. Those are two different things. If any of you are playing the victim card of I didn't get the same opportunities as so-and-so, I didn't get the same opportunities as so-and-so, it is because you didn't notice the opportunities you were provided. The universe has this incredible way of balancing itself out. Some call it karma and energy and all kinds of different things, but that's what it comes down to. It's present in the laws of physics. It's present in our chemistry. It's a balance of things, okay? And the balance of opportunity is that we are all given equal opportunity. They just may not look exactly the same. And it is our ability to adjust, increase awareness, and notice those opportunities that matter. And what allows us to be able to see opportunities is our desires. Our desires will dictate what we see and what we don't see in life. When you desire someone, you notice things about that person that you don't notice about someone you don't desire, as simply as I can put it. When you desire an outcome, you have things in your brain working to magnify, to distract, to engage that particular piece at the expense of other things. When there is desire, there is always fallout. It's why it's so important that we are clear about what we desire. Because if we're experiencing an unnecessary amount of pain, an unnecessary amount of depression, an unnecessary amount of anxiety, and I stress unnecessary because all of those things are part of every human life on earth, period. Our ability to be able to interpret them appropriately is going to determine whether we are experiencing unnecessary levels of them, though. Okay, so we'll want to understand that if we are experiencing unnecessary levels of pain, unnecessary levels of depression or anxiety, that we are likely desiring things that we don't actually desire. Or we may be desiring things in a counterfeit way, meaning they're good ideas, but there isn't true desire. So let's talk about desire for a second before I give you kind of the piece you're going to want, the two pieces you're going to want to evaluate. The shift that we want to create today in your perspective, the snow globe that we want to shake up in terms of your perspective in desire. First, for those of you that follow me and have heard me before, know that I love words. I love etymology. So what does the word desire mean? It means to be longed for. Something we long for is something we desire. Now, we could stop right there, and I find that very interesting. Long for. Not something we short for. A lot of people talk to me about what they desire that they're only willing to short for. Because once they get out there and the first thing goes wrong or something doesn't meet their expectations or they didn't realize how hard it was going to be, that's when they get exposed as short for in it. Don't short for things. If you short for things, you don't long for things, then it's not a real desire. Okay? So that's the first thing. Let's get clear about whether we truly desire something or not, whether we long for it. Okay? To long, okay, when you break down that word, means far to a great extent in space. It's out there. It requires some faith. It requires persistence. It requires passion to long for something, to desire something, because it is far to a great extent of space. But many of us are professing to long for things, but continue to live short for things. If you want to get what you desire, you can't live short for them. We want to play the long game, and hopefully that gives you a little bit different perspective over that today. All right, let's talk about the fulcrum of desire. What I want you to do, if you've got something to take notes on, is I want you to draw a T on your paper, okay? Across the top and then down the bottom, just a big, giant capital T. Okay, this is going to be our fulcrum. You've got the top of the T, that's where the balance is. Okay, and then you've got the middle of the T. That is the desire. So it's pivoting on desire. But we generally have two sides of something we're balancing. We have two sides of desire. And this is what I want you to start to evaluate. This is where you are going to root out your challenges and start to get traction on them to be able to find a perpetual, meaning a permanent, a forward thrust that never ends in your life, where you get traction. Not that you don't struggle, not that you don't have hard times, not that you don't fall, but there's a massive difference between a fall and a fail. That's why Og Mandino, in the greatest salesman in the world, right off the bat, in the very first of the ancient scrolls, The Secrets to Success, said the key here, the key of all this is to prevent failure. Because if you can prevent failure, you can fall without failing, which means you can stand back up and continue going. Imagine running a marathon, and if you fall down, you have to go back to the starting line. You're on mile 16, you're exhausted, you're not lifting your feet up as well as you can, and you trip. You got to go start at the beginning. How many of us have felt like that in our lives? Well, if we can prevent failure, we can fall and stand back up, and guess what? We're still at mile 16. We're still right where we were. And the next step forward we take is still a perpetual and progressive step forward. We're not compensating. We're not making up for things. So on this T, you've got desire. Okay, so under the T, you write desire for the vertical line. On the horizontal line, on the right-hand side, I want you to write embrace. That is the right side of the fulcrum, to embrace. On the left side of the fulcrum is escape. So we've got our desire, because not all desires are good. Not all desires are good. And a lot of our desires, if you understand anything about the human brain, where we've got about 50 to 80,000 conscious thoughts a day, but another 1 to 2 million unconscious thoughts a day, meaning there are desires ingrained in your neurology you are not fully aware of. But you can find evidence if you evaluate the way that I'm going to teach you today. If you evaluate, you'll be able to find evidence of unconscious desires, secret desires, real intentions, the ones you may not even be willing to admit to yourself that are holding you back. And it starts with this fulcrum, the fulcrum of desire. You've got engage and escape. Let's talk a little bit about what this is. Anything you desire in life, okay? You can take the actual outcome. You can take the product of the desire. I desire a loving relationship. I desire a Ferrari. I desire a beach house. I desire a charitable organization that donates $6 million a year to troubled youth. Whatever it is, you can take the outcome and you can apply either sides of this fulcrum to it. You can pursue anything you desire with the energy of trying to escape or the energy of trying to engage. And they are opposite. They are antithetical. They are juxtaposed, okay? They're opposites of each other, meaning you cannot be engaged and escape. You cannot escape and be engaged. Your desire has to choose one or the other. And let's talk a little bit about escape. This is going to also be avoid. If you are trying to pursue something to avoid something, that meaning that we're talking about the primary drivers, okay? Every person's going to have a mix of these things, but I'm talking about the tip of the spear, okay? I'm talking about the engine. I'm talking about the primary driver of your desire. If it is to escape, you may have some embrace in there, but the dominant force is escape. Just like if you are embracing as the dominant force, you might have a little bit of escape. We're human. We have our days. We're not constant. We can't sustain constancy. That's why we're given the wonderful option of consistency, which has a rhythm, an up and a down, a fast and a slow, and all those different things, okay? But we want to be able to understand what is the primary driver. If the primary driver is escape, then we just loop ourselves into this revolving door of life where we feel like we're going somewhere until we get to the end of the journey and pop back out where we started. And we feel like we're going somewhere, we get to the end of the journey and pop back out where we started. That's escape. That's avoid. That's when we're trying to do something so that we can get away from something, okay? And Jeanette asked, can you engage to escape? It's a great question. Energy-wise, you can't. It's impossible to sustain an engaging energy while addressing the energy of wanting to escape. What's ironic about the question, Jeanette, is the best way to escape something is to engage something. However, you cannot engage with the motivation of escaping, because motivation, that impelling force, that external force, will override everything intrinsic, okay? Everything that we're being drawn into, everything that we want to get pulled into in terms of engagement. It's very similar to a lot of people I work with as influencers and coaches and leaders want to inspire people, but they don't want to offend people. And when they're putting equal amounts of energy into inspiring people, but making sure they don't offend people, it dilutes their message and they get neither. They don't offend anybody, but they don't inspire anybody either. Okay? Actually, in fact, in today's age, they probably still offend people because everyone finds some reason to be offended these days. Okay? But we want to understand which one are we going for. Now, that doesn't mean we have to offend people to inspire them. Okay? It doesn't mean we don't have to have an awareness of what we're trying to get away from, okay? Doesn't mean we don't have things we'd like to change or be different, okay? And yes, Carol, engage and embrace I use interchangeably. You have to embrace something to engage it. To embrace something means to accept it, okay? And then be able to deploy it, to be able to engage it. So we embrace it first, and then we engage it. But I typically talk about those things interchangeably. And we'll come to that in just a second. But I want to talk about escape, because we are naturally wired as human beings to want to escape. We have in our evolutionary brains, in our systemic amygdala of our brain, it's built on very basic principles of fight or flight. Okay, and those are dictated by comfortability. In other words, those are dictated by familiarity of the brain. Something unfamiliar we're taught to run away from because it could kill us. That was relevant thousands of years ago, not so much today. So when we want to grow, when we're moving beyond just being able to be hunters and gatherers, we're becoming innovators and inventors and connectors and all these incredible things that are at our fingertips in 2020. We are going to need to defy our evolutionary makeup, not in terms of being able to rewire it. We don't have thousands of years to pull that off, but we can change the way we interpret it so that we can change the way that we engage it. We can change the way that it plays itself out. This is one of the areas where it gets the best of us, because our brains want life to be as easy as possible, because our brains want life to be as easy as possible. Our brain is constantly wired and problem solving and thinking of ways to create habits, which are neural pathways, so that it has an automated source. Many of you have looked into automation in today's day and age. If I could just automate my emails and automate my text messages and automate this and that and automate payroll and automate whatever, it's amazing. Life is so much easier. Well, your brain's trying to do the same thing. If you can automate it, then it doesn't require as much data. It doesn't require as much bandwidth to be able to get through the day. Less bandwidth means less calories burned, means less energy required, means longer survival. Makes a lot of sense on a biological level, but on a metaphysical level, on a growth and becoming more, as far as how we're wired on an intrinsic level, on a mathematical level, it doesn't make sense. So we are naturally wired to lean towards escaping. Escape stress, escape depression, avoid disappointment, avoid this, escape that. It just becomes all about a game of escape and avoid. And then we wonder why we never feel like we're progressing, because escaping and avoiding never was progress. It can't be. So we want to become aware of what we're trying to escape in life, what we're trying to avoid. What is our brain, and sometimes us, trying to make easier? We just want life to be easier and less stressful. And so we look at the things that are causing that and we try to escape them. And then it causes us to just run in circles like a dog chasing its tail, that revolving door. And ironically, we never are able to escape them. We're able to outrun them for a time, depending on your stamina and your speed. But it's time to stop escaping and avoiding in life. Now, one of the toughest things to do is when we're trying to escape something bad. I'm trying to escape depression. I'm trying to escape anxiety. I'm trying to escape debt. These things seem to make a lot of sense to escape to, so we support our instincts. I want to get out of debt. Well, the majority of people who want to get out of debt never do. So there's something about that desire, because it's an escape. Anyone I've met that has gotten out of debt and stayed out of debt, that's an important qualifier, gotten out of debt and stayed out of debt, was able to break this vicious cycle of trying to escape and avoid debt and being able to engage something that drew them into a space of abundance, drew them into a space of discipline, drew them into a space of awareness, that the debt naturally went away. Getting rid of the debt became an outcome, not a destination. Again, it's very important that we understand the difference between outcomes we want to create and destinations we're trying to go to. But understandably so, it is very difficult when we're escaping something bad, because then it makes it hard to understand that we are an escape mentality. We are in an avoid mentality. Okay? So it's why you see so many people leave destructive or abusive relationships and end right back up in another one, because they escaped it and went right back into another one. They changed the scenery, they changed the partner, they changed the person, but they didn't change the intent. They didn't change the desire, the escaping and the avoiding that only leads you right back into what you're trying to get away from. Versus the other side, to engage, to be able to embrace. To embrace comes from the root word capere, which comes from the Proto-Indian European root of cap, which means to grasp. So you could say that to embrace something, okay, is to grasp something. I want you to think of embrace as to grasp it, to hold it, to be able to use it, to wield it like a sword, to be able to fight for what you are passionate about, to be able to get where you want to go. To avoid and escape, it's about letting loose of anything you've got and letting go of all of it so that you can increase speed to outrun things, to be able to get away from it and escape and avoid, to hide, to be quiet, to silence your voice, to play small. Those are all games that work well in escaping and avoiding. But to engage means to grasp, to embrace, to take on what is, what currently is, and be able to work with all of your faculties, to be able to work with all of your gifts with what currently is. So, if there's something you want in life, and want is a premature version of desire, at least for the sakes of this conversation, you want something, well, let's find out if you truly desire it. And I can give you a very simple formula for being able to evaluate this, to evaluate whether you are on the engage side or the escape side. And then you'll want to learn the principles, practices, and processes of how to do that. In fact, everything in the Habit Finder curriculum, everything that people spend tens of thousands of dollars on, and the hundreds of thousands of people and thousands of organizations we've worked with, we've taught, comes down to what are the principles that rewire the brain, that teach it the habits of engaging in life, embracing principles, adding value to the world rather than escaping and avoiding and surviving and sticking with what's familiar. Everything in that is what we teach. So if you're looking for the answers, first you're going to need to find out what elements of your life you think you desire, but you actually don't, or it's at least not the primary desire. And here's how to tell, okay? Let's take something you desire. If you've got something you truly desire, you will naturally find the steps to accomplish it and the fulfillment that comes from doing so. So I want you to write that out. Truly desire, the next column, you will find the steps, okay? The baby steps and the boundaries, baby steps and boundaries to have the fulfillment that comes from that pursuit. When it's something you truly desire, you'll find the steps and the boundaries, and you'll find fulfillment. That's an indicator that you are in alignment, consciously and unconsciously, that you truly desire it. Another indicator is you'll actually accomplish it, okay? As a worthy desire, okay? That's an important qualifier, a worthy desire, something that inspires you, okay? Something that is abundant, something that adds to your courage, something that drives you to embrace structure to accomplish. When it is a true desire, you will always find the steps. You will always find fulfillment. When you have something you think you desire, but all you're experiencing, okay, so put fake desire. So true desire, steps and boundaries, fulfillment. Fake desire or counterfeit desire, you will have obstacles and you will have pain. So if you think you desire a successful business, but all you seem to find are obstacles and pain, then what have we learned? You don't truly desire a successful business. It is not your primary desire, at least. And there is nothing that causes more pain in this life that I've seen in my industry, in my business, than something you think you desire that you don't. You think you desire that, but there are unconscious, sometimes suppressed elements that have fragmented that desire. And maybe you do desire, using some arbitrary numbers, maybe you have 40% desire for that, to engage it, to embrace it, but you've got 60% of a desire to escape from something. And you've tangled them together and hope that you could pull it off to be able to make the journey. Well, all you need is 51% of desire in engagement and embracing. And that 49% of escape and avoid can be conquered. And the more you tip those scales, the quicker and more efficiently you'll be able to accomplish it. So I just want you to think about some of your goals. I want you to think about what you've tried to accomplish in life. And if you thought you wanted something and you currently think you want something and you experience more obstacles than inspired steps and boundaries, you experience more pain than you do fulfillment, then there is something wrong with your fulcrum. There is something there that you will want to seek out in terms of your secret desires and your real intentions. Being able to find out what's going on in your mind that you may not be fully aware of or fully able to admit about what you're trying to do. Most common, we talk about this all the time, is I really love helping people, as long as they're not idiots. Okay? Well, if the core of your desire is to build a business that is to serve people, and you've got a qualifier like that, what are you going to be doing? You're going to be avoiding and escaping idiots, which is going to withdraw from the inspired steps and boundaries that will give you the fulfillment of a successful business. Does that make sense? Okay? Those are a couple basic examples. If any of you have felt this resistance of, oh yeah, I was so convinced I desired this, but you're right. I've experienced way more obstacles and challenges. No, I'm going to take that one out because challenges are going to be on either side. But I've experienced what felt like way more like obstacles than steps and boundaries, okay? And way more pain than fulfillment. Then there is some other competing desire on the other side of the fulcrum, or it's just not something you actually desire, which is also a reality. You could have been taught that it was what you were supposed to desire. You were supposed to love spending time with your children, but you just don't. Well, that doesn't mean you have to settle for not spending time with your children. It means that you can't learn to spend time with your children if you don't admit that that's where you are, and then learn the principles that can help you engage in new patterns. But if you're just trying to avoid admitting that that's where you are, that's going to be a major challenge. And what we often find as we diagnose this is it's peripheral things. It's the fringes that make the biggest difference. It's how you listen to people. It's how you plan out your day. It's how you connect with yourself. It's the blueprints you create in your mind. It's the interpretations you make about the way your life is showing up. It's the things that you really face versus just pretend you don't think. Those are the things that we're looking to embrace. You are the people we are looking to engage and embrace and help tip this scale, tip this fulcrum to be in your benefit. None of us could do it 100% of the time, but if you can do it just a little bit more than you are currently, your life will feel completely different. So start by taking a look at your real intentions, your secret desires. And if there's noise competing there that is resulting in more obstacles than steps and boundaries and more pain than fulfillment, we can help. Let us know. At least go to habitfinder.com and take the assessment. And then make the next few investments. And I know there's many of you on here who have made those investments. And many of you have felt phenomenal experiences and great results from applying those things. If any of you have not yet, I ask you to be patient. Remember where we started. Desire is something we long for. It is long. Stop living for what is short for. Stop looking for the shortcuts, the avoid, the escape. That's why we also spend so much time talking about joy in the journey. Because if you don't know how to find joy in the journey, longing for something, the long game sounds like torture. Because we've been convinced that it's at the finish line that we get the payoff. Joy in the journey, every step, every celebration, every confident sense of accomplishment of those baby steps we take adds to our heart and our character and who we are and our ability to serve and bless those around us, and the opportunity to be able to grow our businesses and be massively successful at the same time. Those are not opposing forces, but they come from being clear about whether you are trying to engage in life or escape it. Look forward to being able to continue to serve you any way that we can. Thanks for being on today. Thank you for sharing this out with people that you know deserve to hear this. Again, go to habitfinder.com. take your assessment. If you've already done it, meet with one of our specialists, find out what we can do to continue to serve you, to continue to keep you engaged in this path. Because one thing we know with hundreds of thousands of people in 20 years is that if you will apply the principles we teach, it is not a matter of if, it is a matter of when. We can't expect it to show up at a certain time, but it sure helps to be on a path that is inevitable. Og talked about your path being inevitable. He talked about it challenging and taking away, setting you on a path that will imprison your future. We want to teach you how to set that future free, and it comes down to these things. Thanks, everybody. Have a great Tuesday, a great end of July, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Take care.